actually made a mistake making this presentation because I made a presentation about mistakes, but it's not really about innovation. Or is it? Maybe it is, I don't know. Anyway, when I was thinking about this topic, my thoughts started to turn a little to the neurotic because I could see many mistakes in my past, and maybe there was just an infinite regression of mistakes often in the past. My entire life could be characterized by the many mistakes that have happened, and happily this is normal. We all have things we do that are not quite right, or in hindsight, were not the best choices. For example, I graduated from the University of Washington and then moved to Michigan with no money to pursue a graduate degree in social work, which was maybe the most fiscally irresponsible possible thing I could do because I didn't have any money, I wasn't getting a scholarship, and I couldn't make any money after getting a degree. But while in Michigan, I fell in love with a very nice lady and followed her to California, which was nice, but also in some ways a horrible mistake because it didn't work out. And because I moved to California, which is an especially hostile place to do social workers, because you have to spend a lot of time practicing, not really getting paid, before you can become licensed to not really get paid very much. And it was especially hard not having money, not having a lot of student loan debt in a state which I wasn't really prepared to practice in, trying to find a way to practice. But it got me to the San Francisco Bay Area a couple years before the dot-com run-up, the first one. So that set me on a different path, right? So actually my story is really about a tiny little mistake in the midst of that period between arriving in San Francisco and then finally succeeding in San Francisco. During that period, I was still not really involved in design. I'd always done a little bit of design on the side. It was something I kind of felt I had an aptitude for, but no real experience or credibility. So it was just a thing. I made cards for people I liked and stuff like that. And I was casting about for work, and I was hungry because as a not yet licensed clinical social worker in mental health in California, there was no money. There was plenty of work, no money. So at one point I made a mistake and told a temp agency that I had more experience than I did and wound up in a legal secretary job, which is weird because I didn't have any legal experience, any secretary experience. Couldn't really type very fast. But since I was detail-oriented, they kind of liked me anyway. And I was the only guy around in the secretary pool, so they kind of liked me anyway. And while I was at that job, I got to the point where I could come and go. I could show up early and work on things that I hadn't finished the previous day. I could essentially interact with people and not screw things up so badly that they would want me to leave. And one day, I'd arrived early, the office manager let me in, and I came across that guy. I decided I'm early, I'm poor, I didn't have money to spend on coffee. I would like to make some coffee. I would like to have some coffee. Nobody's here to help me, but this doesn't look so complicated. It's a nothing special office coffee maker, right? It's got a carafe and a warmer and a filter basket and a little flap at the top that you open up where you pour the water in so it can heat all of this and make coffee for you. And I figured nobody's around to see this. I might as well give it a shot. Right, so I filled the carafe with water. You know, the old trick of I don't know how much, but I kind of want about this much coffee, so I'll get about this much water. Lifted the flap, poured it in, pulled the filter basket out, found the coffee someplace, found a filter that looked like it maybe hadn't been used, put the coffee in, etc. Only, actually, this is not completely accurate. I had this coffee maker instead. And I don't know if you noticed what's different about it. There are actually only a few things that are different about it. It has a little red dude on the side for hot water. It has a little ready light. Nice feature, hey, your coffee's ready. Of course, you're probably standing there waiting for the coffee, so you don't have to be told. And it has a start button, which the previous one didn't have. So I poured the water in the mechanism, and I put the coffee in, etc., and I found and pushed the start button. And suddenly the coffee maker made a really strange noise I didn't expect. It went, which wasn't a coffee maker noise. It was this thing is plumbed into the water supply of the building noise, and you shouldn't have poured water into the guts of the coffee maker. And so shortly after hearing this noise and the feeling of dread kind of flowing over me, weak, not very warm coffee-ish something started to just sort of leak out of all the surfaces and pores of this device, right? So everywhere there's folded metal or a parting line or something else on this, there was a little bit of coffee coming out. Some of it was making it into the craft, but not most of it. And so I've got a mess on my hands. The kind of kitchen area of this law firm is in a carpeted hallway with a long counter and many drawers and many doors, and now an expanding pool of coffee around this coffee maker. And I have no way of, it has a start button, which is a momentary contact thing that springs back. It doesn't have a stop button. It doesn't have I don't have time to find a water shutoff or anything. If I pull any part of it out that I know comes out, it's not really going to help. It's just I have a disaster waiting to happen that I have to deal with somehow. So I'm looking around, I'm opening doors. I don't kind of care really who sees me now. They have about 30 rolls of paper towels in one of the cabinets. Yay. And so I'm just ripping paper towel rolls open and I'm making dams and trying to prevent the coffee from going into the drawers, because if it goes into the drawers, I am screwed. It is coming down the surface of the drawers and it is coming down the surface of the doors and a little bit going inside them, and it's getting on the carpet. But I'm sopping it up as fast as I can with these paper towels, and I'm taking handfuls of sopping paper towels and stuffing them in the one garbage can that's nearby, which happens to have been under the lead secretary's desk. And I'm just mopping this thing up, and at some point the shh noise stops, and then a little while later, the dripping of coffee seems to stop, and I'm wiping things up. And things are pretty well wiped up, and I still want some coffee, but now I know how this thing works. So I make some coffee without pouring water into the machine. And it's starting to drip out, and I'm wiping the last little bits of coffee remnants off of the counter when the lead secretary comes around the corner and says, "Oh, you made coffee, and it's so clean in here. How nice." And they asked me back, but by the time they asked me back, I had found a job running a report production department for a management consulting firm in San Francisco, and was on another path. So the meta story really is that a mistake almost always opens an opportunity, but you may have to look into your past to understand what the opportunity was.